My unexplained experiences at 1894 Elm Street. My room was in the basement, and my first night sleeping there, one corner of my room was darker than the rest of the room. It looked as if a dark figure shadow just stood there. So I turned on the TV and went to sleep with it on. I was 16 years old. The creepy feeling of being watched and a heavy feeling was always present the entire time I lived there. At night, I was always the last one to go to sleep. Being in the basement, I could hear all of the movements upstairs. I would run up to see if anyone was still up, only to find everyone sound asleep. This happened quite frequently. One day, my dad and I were home by ourselves and everyone had gone out shopping. My dad was upstairs watching TV, and I was in my room in the basement using the computer. My doorknob rattled and turned as if someone was trying to get in. Thinking it was my sister, I yelled, "What? It's locked." Hearing no response, I ran to open the door. No one was there. Now, thinking my dumb sister was trying to scare me, I went into the bathroom and laundry room to check if she was hiding. Finding no one, I ran upstairs to see if there was anyone else in the home. I only found my father still watching TV. I asked him if anyone had come home, and he said no one did. My final and most creepy experience I ever had was coming home from school. As I was driving up the driveway, someone peeked out of the window at me. It was a dark figure who had brushed the shades to the side with their hand and looked out at me. I thought it was my mom or dad who were back early. Being lazy, I went and knocked on the door and tried to open it, expecting it to be already unlocked. But it wasn't. I finally got fed up and used my key to open the door. I went in and was pretty mad that they didn't open the door for me and was yelling why they didn't open the door. There was no response, so I went around the house looking to see who could have been looking at me through that window. I found no one, and finally went to the backyard to see if someone had broken into our house, only to find my brother and sister, who were locked out and trying to get in because they had forgotten their keys. I asked them if they had seen anyone come in or out, and they said no. I asked if they were inside the house, and they said no. Then I said, "Who was the person in the house then?" That's when they both freaked out. Living there, those are my only experiences, but my mom and every one of my siblings had an experience that they couldn't explain. 10 years ago, when I was 13, I believed I had a paranormal experience. I was sleeping in my bedroom, which I shared with my younger brother, who was 9 at the time. I remember waking up at 2:45 for no reason, then staring at the alarm clock, trying to get back to sleep. As I sat up in my bed and looked towards my brother's bed, I heard the floors creak right outside of the bedroom doors. I remember turning my head and shifting my attention towards the door, only to catch it swing open with a dark figure standing in the doorway. I was terrified. I turned towards my little brother to yell for him to wake up, but to no avail because no sound was coming from my mouth. The dark figure then sat down at the foot of my bed, forcing me down with heavy weight and pressure on my body. I began to toss and turn, and finally, with all of my strength, I was able to squeak out a cry for help. The dark, shadowy figure disappeared, and I was fine. I turned on the lights and slept with them on for about 3 months, and to this day still have goosebumps telling the story. Please do not criticize this story as being false. I do not have a sleep disorder, and it was not a dream. I still remember it like it happened yesterday. And the address I was living at the time was 391 Jasmine Avenue, St. Paul, Minnesota. My story happens while camping on the north shore of Lake Superior with my Girl Scout troop last year. The camp we were staying at wasn't a bad camp. It was actually very nice. I don't remember the name of it though. There were 3 campgrounds in this camp. The one the furthest back being the largest. Since we had a big troop, that was the one that we were staying at. At dinner, the troop was split into 2 groups, I being the leader of one. So it was my job to get the fire going. I sent 2 of the girls to get firewood while I cleaned up the fireplace and looked for matches. When I looked over to see if any of the girls had gotten any firewood, I saw 4 hikers walking towards the camp, then vanish. Knowing it was probably just my imagination, I shook it off. It was getting dark, and one of the girls had to go to the bathroom, so my friend and I went with her. The porta potty thing was where you first drove into the camp, so we had to walk about 5 minutes to get there. She went in, and we waited outside for her to get done. 10 minutes later, she was still in there, and we just heard something making noise in the woods, so we were about to tell her to hurry up when the bathroom door burst open and her face was pale white. We asked her what was wrong, and she said that there was a green light in the bottom of the toilet. We told her this wasn't the time to be messing around, but she looked so scared that we decided to take a look. Sure enough, there's a strange green light in the bottom of the toilet. We ran back to camp and explained what we'd seen, but hardly anyone believed us. But little did we know, they would soon believe what we saw. Just when we were getting ready to go to bed, a girl outside our tent said, "Oh my God, come quick!" We came out and looked at her to see what was going on, and everyone was pointing at something in the tree. We looked up, and what I saw startled me. In the tree was the strangest thing I've ever seen. A cloaked figure about 2.5 feet tall was just sitting in the tree. We all ran elsewhere, not caring where we went, just away from what our eyes saw. We came back 20 minutes later and went to bed. I will never forget that trip. After having my incident with the man who whispered in my ear, we moved out of his parents' place. This about 6 years later in 2004, in the fall. We moved up the road about 2 miles and bought a house. I spent a whole week listening to the house to make sure that we were safe in there. My daughter finally started to sleep in her own room. We had lived there for about 4 years. The last year that I was there, I started to see more shadows, increasingly more. My boyfriend and I were breaking up constantly, and I was moving in and out. I chose to ignore these figures just like I ignored every other figure. Previously, before moving into the home, we knew who the folks that lived there were. I saw them everywhere, out of the corner of my peripheral view. I left them alone as long as I was left alone. I spent the night at my girlfriend's house for the week and woke up to a feeling of someone watching me. I, for some reason, had woken up and looked up to the egress window and seen a shadow looking in on me. Back in 2009, when I was about 6 to 8 weeks pregnant, we had gotten back together and took a night out to a motel. I was in a deep sleep and was running from this dark, clothed entity. The faster I ran, the faster it ran. It got closer and closer every time. I couldn't make out the face, who it was, but it was keeping up. The closer this entity got to me, I started saying prayers. It got so close to my face that I was about to see who I was running from. Right when it was going to reveal itself, I was woken up, literally shaken by my boyfriend. Yes, this boyfriend I had was the same one since I was 20 years old. I heard his voice while still saying prayers. When I came to, I saw my boyfriend's face. He had asked me what was going on, and also told me that it took him a few minutes to get me to snap. He said that I was talking in Bible language and I was saying a lot of verses. He asked if I read and studied the Bible because of the verses I was saying. Now he became a believer. He got spooked, and when we got home, he put his cross necklace on. That night, going to bed after he put the cross on, nothing happened. I know being around negative people can bring these things onto another person. I think that my boyfriend had evil spirits, and they finally got to me. There are a few of us that work at a daycare center in Minneapolis, Minnesota, that believe that one of the classrooms in our building is haunted. It usually happens around closing time when all the kids have gone home for the night, usually around 11 to 12 at night. When one of us will walk by one particular classroom and get a strange, uncomfortable feeling as soon as we pass the classroom. I once saw what looked like a little girl in the classroom, but no one entering it. No one was there. I am interested in researching the history of the building to see if I could find out any information. More recently, a day ago, we had some kids watching a movie while waiting to be picked up when the light in the preschool playroom was switched off. The other staff member and I were confused due to the fact that only other staff members were in the building, and they were all on the other end of the building. All the kids were sitting by the TV watching the movie. We still have yet to figure out who's responsible for the light being switched off. My opinion is that the building is haunted by a young female child, probably between 3 and 5 years old. But I have not had the opportunity as of yet to do actual research or investigate the situation further. I am curious to see if my opinion is correct, and if so, the particular facts as to why. But although I am sensitive, I am too afraid to lead the investigation myself. My gift scares me more than it helps. I lived in Faribault, Minnesota. It's a small town where everyone knows everyone. Well, there is an old insane asylum that is now run down. It's boarded up and has been there for years. Teenagers like to go there and mess around and do drugs. Well, I've been in that place and it's creepy. As I was walking through the tunnel, and it leads to the old asylum, while I was walking through there, I heard screaming like it was far away, but it echoed so far. I got to the end of the tunnel. As I walked to the asylum, I was with friends. We all got to the end, even though we heard screams. We were thinking it was the wind. As we started to walk to the asylum, we saw a figure standing at the end of the tunnel. And we looked at it for 2 seconds, and after that it disappeared. So we continued on and went through a hole in the front door. We all got inside and looked around. We were on the main floor when we saw old instruments that were used for the insane years ago. And as we were walking around, we entered a room that a guy died in. There was an old newspaper sitting on the ground of the room saying that he was there because of schizophrenia. He had murdered his whole family and then was placed in the asylum. He was tortured with tools as well. You know, like electric chairs and things like that. He died in 1946, and the place was condemned in 1984. We walked towards the room, and we started to hear talking, wondering what it was. Well, my friend got attacked and had disappeared. So we kept walking, trying to find him. And we walked into a room for children. There were 20 beds. We walked in there looking for him, still nothing. We heard a noise in the far corner of one of the beds. Someone appeared to be there. It was a child who must have been tortured while living there, and we bolted out of the door. As we ran outside, we ran into our friend. We asked him where he was. He said that he could not remember. But after we walked through that tunnel, I had a strange figure follow me as I was walking. But after I walked out of the tunnel, it disappeared. I still never went back to that place. Ghouls, I hope you enjoyed. See, I promised. I gave you an extra story for Minnesota. And for that last story, I actually had to look. I looked up because I know it bothers a lot of people when I pronounce cities and stuff wrong. I Googled it to figure out how to say it. Are you proud of me? But oh my gosh, ghouls, that stream we had last week was so fun. Lady Spook was there. It was great. Shadow Walker was there. It was so fun. But I hope you guys come for our next one. We really like doing those, so hopefully you guys like the chill vlogs. Listen to me. The chill streams, you know? So then we can do those once a month. Depending on how Mike and I's weeks are going, because when we have hectic weeks, we just want to frickin' chill and talk to you ghouls, because you ghouls are so awesome. I love talking to you. You ghouls always make things better, and I have a lot of, things going on in life, and you ghouls, you help, you do. So I thank you for that. But for a secret word, how about you give me the name of your cat or dog, or a name you want to give a cat or a dog, or any animal. It's been my dream to own a rat and name him Scabbers. But then my friend who owns rats say that your rats have to have you need to have 2 rats in a cage or one will die. Because if it's alone, it'll be lonely and be sad all the time and it'll just die. Is that true? I believe him. He has 3 rats. But Yeah. Give me a funny animal name. But as always, ghouls, the last video is on the top left. The next video will be on the bottom left. All my social medias are on the screen as well as in the description box below. And remember, there's always someone or something watching you.